Hey Rebels, my name is Matthew Barton. Welcome to the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. A few weeks ago, Mark came back from Calgary with a pile of beer for the staff to taste. We tried more than 10 new beers that afternoon, but the one that stole my heart was Cabin Brewing's Luminosity. Mark told me the folks at Cabin Brewing are not screwing around, so I figured I better call them up and invite Jonas on the podcast and find out more about Cabin Brewing. So let's get into it. Jonas, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
How's it going?
It's going well. We still got really nice weather here in Calgary, nice and sunny. Hit like 25 on the weekend, so I'm loving every minute of it because I know, Calgary can snow any day now.
You guys kind of have weather fluctuations, right? Comes off the mountains, hits you quick.
Very quick. And yeah, like huge fluctuations in temperature in 24 hours. Like I think last year there was, in 24 hours, it was like a 40 degree temperature difference. It was 20 degrees one day and then minus 20 the next day.
We've had a really unseasonably warm September. I think just yesterday we broke an all-time record for hottest day in September on that day. It was like 32 at one point, and they're projecting 30s for the next few days. So I don't know. By the time this airs, it'll all be colder.
Yeah, I'll take it.
So for the uninitiated who maybe haven't been out to Calgary yet because COVID sucks, what is Cabin Brewing? What's your elevator pitch?
The elevator pitch. So we are a brewery and tap room in the heart of the Manchester Brewing District. So we're pretty close to downtown Calgary, just south, kind of by the Stampede grounds. Most people know that as a landmark here. And we like making mostly hop-forward, flavorful beer, and we're really tight on quality. That's something we really take pride in, and make sure that every beer we're putting out is of the highest quality. And yeah, that's the elevator pitch. I don't know if you bought it or not, but
if I go to Cabin Brewing and I walk in, is it going to be like 7 teeth-peeling IPAs, or am I going to find kind of a panopticon of beer styles? Is there something for everyone, or do you focus on one thing?
Usually we try and have a varied selection, and I love that use of the word panopticon. I'm going to add that to my thesaurus. Yeah, so we'll generally, like our 3 core beers are fairly hop forward. And then we're thinking of bringing on a 4th core beer, which is a lager, the Luminosity that you spoke of earlier. Mainly because everyone here likes to drink that beer. And yeah, we'll generally have a sour or multiple sours. Try and have a darker beer for sure in the colder months. And even the tooth enamel peeling hop IPAs, we try and make them balanced. If an IPA can be balanced, we try and make it, drinkable. And like our Sunshine Rain is our West Coast IPA. And, West Coast IPAs are typically hop forward, not just in aroma, but also in bitterness. So it's bitter, but it's not too bitter that you halfway through the pint, you're like, whoa, this feeling on my tongue, I want to get rid of it. So I like to go for drinkability when designing recipes.
One of the things that struck me about that beer tasting we did was we've been trying pilsners all year long. Anytime we can get our hands on a pilsner, we're comparing it to our own. We're kind of putting it in our mental category. And I've got to say, I think Luminosity in my brain now it's kind of the benchmark. It's the bar that everybody has to clear for what I think a great pilsner can taste like. And we have this problem in Saskatchewan where we have one really big branded beer called Pilsner,
Never heard of it.
and it kind of has exact. Well, the less the said, the better. But I just think that there's so much more that this style can offer. And Mark's like, Matt, just shut up and drink it. It's fantastic. And I drank. I'm like, oh man, like it changed my life. Like, and to hear that you guys are going to be doing more of it, I'm yeah.
Yeah, it's something that like so there's myself and two partners that own the cabin, and we've all just, I don't know what it is with this year, but this year we've all been craving, beer flavored beer. And maybe it's just because for the first 3 years, we hadn't been brewing anything like that, hoppy beers and, big stouts and fruity sours. And I think everyone just kind of came back to square one and was like, oh, I just want something crisp, clean, tastes like beer. Like and I feel like a lot of breweries are doing that now as well. Like we've seen a lot of pilsners this summer. There's some really good ones in Alberta, like Blind Man's Five of Diamonds is really good. The Jasper Brewing Crisp Pills is another favorite of mine. But I love the balance. Like it still tastes like beer, but you get hop character, you get some nice bready malt character, and I just love the simplicity of them. Like, it's 2 different types of malt, 2 different types of hops, and that's it. And it, ferments down pretty low, so it's nice and dry. And I find it very thirst quenching. It ticks a lot of boxes for me right now.
When you guys go through a process of coming up with beer styles, is it a formalized thing where you say, okay, this year we're doing this, or that year we're doing that? Like, or is it just, okay, we have some ingredients, let's figure it out?
We like to fly by the seat of our pants. So, sometimes to a detriment. But, the last brewery I worked at was a bigger brewery, Wild Rose. You may have heard of them. They, when you get big, you do need to do a lot of planning, possibly a year out, because it's a much bigger ship to steer. But us, we're kind of taking, like, all 3 of us came from a home brewing background. And, when I was home brewing, it was always like, okay, what am I going to brew next? What do I feel like drinking in a few weeks? And that's kind of what we're still doing. And back to your comment about, like, having a beer for everybody. We always want to make sure we're not just putting out a bunch of hazy IPAs in a row, because, some people don't like those. So it's a balance of, like, what do we want to drink 2 months down the road, and also what other beers are we going to have on tap at the same time. Try and keep it balanced. It's kind of bit us in the rear end a couple times, just because we can everything. Like, we put everything in cans. So we need to give our design team enough notice. And just with COVID, lead times on everything have become longer. So getting our labels printed, getting the labels applied to the cans, getting the cans to us, that all takes longer. So we all have to try and work back from that. And we haven't been very good at that. So we've had some beers that have sat in the tank quite a bit longer than we wanted to, just because we're waiting on packaging. So now we are trying to plan a little further out, and kind of coming up with a list of beers. We don't know exactly when we're going to brew them, but we know we want to brew A, B, C, D. Get some names down, get some styles down, send it off to our design firm, and then they come up with some pretty rad labels most of the time.
Do you guys have a final say on your artwork? Because I love it. I just kind of try to wrap my head. That was going to be one of my next questions. Your marketing. I love it. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's so fun. That's like one of my favorite parts of the job is seeing what, when we got a new beer into Daughter Creative, that's the name of their design agency. What they come back with, because I think it's mainly one designer there that is basically on our account and a few other accounts, but he knows our brand really well, and he knocks it out of the park every single time. Like, every single time we've had like minor changes, but 98% of the time it's good to go.
Like, I want to say it has those really rich, deep, bright colors that pop off the shelf. When you look at one of your guys' cans versus something else on the shelf, immediately you know that's cabin.
Yeah.
But you also follow a consistent theme. So there's like super and super duper, and so you have a general sense. If you've only got 5 seconds to look at a can, you grab it quicker. It locks into your brain, and I like that kind of foresight. It tickles the thing in the back of my brain that says this is good.
Yeah, it's kind of unique. I think they're quite simple, but they're usually 3-4 colors, if that, and very pattern based, like lots of repeating patterns or just very simple colors. But I don't know, I find it very appealing, to kind of like in a primal way, almost like it's just like bright, simple colors. I do love simplicity. Like, I think it's simple ingredients, simple design, and I think it just stands out because you see a lot of cans on the shelf, and a lot of them are quite busy. And ours, we don't even have our logo on the front of the can. You have to kind of turn the can around and look at it on the back and see, oh, that's cabin. But like you're saying, there's no, I'm not going to say there's no consistency between the brands, but each brand is treated as its own little project, but there is kind of an overarching similarity between all of them. And like the saturation series, we've definitely kept similar themes for those, the 3 stripes but different colors. We just released one this week. It was last week. Yeah, it was just end of last week. We released one called Total Saturation, and that was a 10% triple IPA. And we never thought we'd go higher than Super Duper Saturation, but here we are. And we did that one on fluorescent ink cans. So when you bring it under a black light, they pop. It's super cool. Black background with fluorescent ink on it. It's super neat.
Is that a limited edition kind of collector's item?
Yeah, that was one of our quickest selling beers. It was sold out, a 25 hect batch, sold out in 24 hours. It's nuts. So we're like, okay, maybe we should brew this again. So we got it in the schedule for Monday.
Oh, what kind of freight are you throwing into that kettle? If you're hitting that big triple IPA, you probably got to stuff a lot of hops in there.
There's a lot of hops. We for this one, we actually use this hop blend that comes out of Yakima Chief. They're based in Yakima, Washington, and they're one of the biggest hop suppliers in the world. So they came out with a hop blend called Cryo Pop. So a little backstory to cryo hops. This was something they came out with, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. But what they basically do is hops have a lot of leafy, vegetal material that basically just add bulk. They don't really add any flavor character or bitterness to the beer. It's all the oil compounds that are in the hops that give you all the good stuff. So they came out with a proprietary technology, and they somehow, I would imagine, cryogenically freeze the hops and mechanically shake them or move them, and it causes them to drop all of the lupulin, which is what contains all of the nice flavor compounds and bitterness. So basically, you come up with like a super concentrated hop material that you have to use a lot less of to get the same kind of character you would from using the regular hops. So it's beneficial in a lot of ways. It doesn't absorb as much liquid when we're brewing it, so we get higher yields at the end of the day. We get more beer out of the batch into cans. But also just that concentrated flavor is just kind of blows the mind a little bit. It's like, whoa, it's insane freshness and brightness that you don't normally get from just using your standard hop pellets. I will say though that you do need to kind of combine it with regular hops. If you just use 100% cryo hops, I don't love the character. I think you have to throw in a little bit of your standard hop pellets in there and just kind of round everything out. But this blend they've done it's great, and it's the first. It's this new thing they're trying out, making blends with these cryo hops. So this one is it's varied. They don't tell you which hops are in there, but you can kind of pick out from smelling them, tasting them, like, oh, I think there's some Sabro in there. You get a bit of that coconut. But from what I've heard is they're going to start tailoring these blends based on flavor profiles. So you'll be able to buy like the strawberry cryo pop and the orange cryo pop and the mango cryo pop. So it's pretty neat the direction things are going with hop research.
Is that the one with the buckets and it kind of looks like this green kind of sort of liquid? It's like very viscous and it's like a concentrate?
No, so these ones, they still look like hop pellets, but they're like the lupulin inside a hop pellet is quite yellow. It's like almost like a lime green yellow color. So that's what they look like. That concentrate is, I know Barth Haas is another hop company, and they have a few different types of extracts, but a lot of those you use in kettle and not in the dry hop process. So you use it in the kettle for bittering. They are starting to come out with ones that are more aroma and flavor oriented, so that you get more flavor and aroma rather than just bitterness. And I know there's a ton of research being done on the fermenter addition side, so adding stuff to the fermenter, when we would normally dry hop a beer. There's a lot of research and I think some products coming out that you can just add directly into the fermenter.
By the time this episode comes out, we're going to be doing a full bore blast of our wet hopped beers, which are kind of all launching at the same time. So we're going to have a wet hopped Comet and a wet hopped Chinook series. And the Comet, we haven't even officially announced it yet. It sold out in 48 hours, the entire 20-hack batch. And I'm excited to see what they do with Chinook because this is the first time we've tried it. And so to hear you talk about experimenting with cryo pop, I'm like, yes. I'm like, all right, new stuff with hops.
Yeah.
How can I get my hands on this stuff? Are you guys shipping to Saskatchewan at all?
No. I know there are a couple stores. I don't know where exactly they are, but I know there's a few stores that order our beer through Liquor Connect, which is the Alberta distributor. And the only beers we send up to Liquor Connect are the 3 core beers, plus Luminosity. I might as well just start calling it a core beer, because I think it will be.
Is that the one you're most excited about?
The Luminosity?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, like I was saying earlier, I tend to, when I open my fridge, I'm not always reaching for the super hoppy IPAs anymore. I'm just like, I just want something crisp and clean and refreshing. Not that IPAs aren't that, but I don't know. I just feel like I've dumbed down my taste buds for this year for some reason. Next year, I'm sure it'll be something else.
I know there's this kind of, what do I call it, instinct amongst brewers to always be, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And it's interesting that you have felt and seen that emergence of beer that tastes like beer theme. We launched our beer that tastes like beer. We've had friends launching their pilsners and experimenting with those kinds of laid back pieces. I'm like, what's going on? What's driving that? Did we need something to comfort us during COVID, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like, honestly, I don't know if, like, our hoppier beers, they still sell better. So maybe this goes against all business instincts, but we started brewing it not necessarily for the customer. Like, we didn't have a ton of people saying, you guys need a Pilsner, you guys need a Pilsner. But all of us here at the brewery were like, we need a Pilsner. So we did it. And I mean, we're small enough that we can do, a 20-hec batch of something, which is 2,000 liters. And, it's not that big of an experiment. If it doesn't sell, it will eventually sell. It might take, months instead of weeks. But it's risks we're willing to take to just keep innovating. Like I don't even have a tally of how many beers we've come out with, but since we've opened, but it's a lot. Like we're trying to come out with new beers every couple of weeks. So, and they're all experiments. It's like, we don't know if this is going to sell. And if it does, we'll probably brew it again. And if it doesn't, then we move on.
One of the things that really resonates with me is Mark has given you guys one of his strongest endorsements. And every time he comes back from Calgary or Alberta, he's got cabin beers in a flat, and he's like, get them now, guys. Don't miss out on these. And he has this really annoying trait of always being right. So I'm really glad I got to sit down with you and talk about cabin. I mean, what's next for you guys?
What's next? Oh, that's the question we're always trying to answer. We've seen some incredible growth over, especially I want to say the last year. I'm not boasting or anything, but we won Alberta Brewery of the Year last March. And I don't know if it was that or just the timing of COVID landing and everybody drinking more, but it just seemed like last spring things just kind of blew up for us, and we had a real hard time keeping up last summer and this summer too. But we've so we started off with 3,600 square feet, one bay. And then just about a year ago, we got 2 more bays. So we just added another 7,200 square feet. We're not really operating in that space quite yet. We're just still ironing out a year later some of the permits, you know how those things go. But we should be up and running in that space, I think, by the end of October. And what we're doing over there is we install some bright tanks. So we're going to move our entire packaging operation over there. We built a big walk-in cooler so we can cold store all of our beer. That was a huge oversight when we opened. Was a small cooler will be fine. And then basically 2 weeks in, it's like, no, it's not. So I'm really glad, and our beer, we do a lot of hot forward stuff, and you got to keep it cold, otherwise the character just falls off so quick. So super excited about that. I don't think we have any plans of expanding outside of the province just yet. We don't have the capacity quite yet to be able to do that, and we're still, busy peak times. We're still having trouble keeping up with just Alberta. So sorry, but just send Mark back here more.
I've got a lot of family in Calgary. We can figure out how to bootleg some beer back to Saskatchewan.
Exactly. Aren't the borders open now, or is that, I don't know, to beer?
I think the borders are open. It's a long drive.
Yeah, that is a long drive. Yeah, both my parents are from Winnipeg, and so every summer when I was a kid, we'd make the drive from Calgary to Winnipeg, and always stop in Regina for lunch. It's a long drive, and Regina is like halfway. So.
Right. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk with me, man.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Rebels, thanks for listening today. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, be sure to join us on our brand new Facebook group page, the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. I'm going to include links to all things cabin brewing so you can find them online. I'm also proud to let you know that we're members of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. It's a one-stop shop for tons of locally produced shows from across our province, and you can find them at saspodcastnetwork.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Untappd so you don't miss out on the latest in Sask craft beer news. Thank you for joining the Rebellion.